Welcome to the AM Update, Week in Review. A collection of the best moments from Aaron McIntire's morning update.
Let's go back to Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. I thought the first 3 minutes of his speech to all of those high-ranking generals and admirals was well worth the listen and spells out in greater detail just why the military has to focus on war and combat readiness.
This speech today is about people, and it's about culture. The topic today is about the nature of ourselves. Because no plan, no program, no reform, no formation will ultimately succeed unless we have the right people and the right culture at the War Department. If I've learned one core lesson in my 8 months in this job, it's that personnel is policy. Personnel is policy. The best way to take care of troops is to give them good leaders committed to the warfighting culture of the department. Not perfect leaders, good leaders. Competent, qualified, professional, agile, aggressive, innovative, risk-taking, apolitical, faithful to their oath and to the Constitution. Eugene Sledge, in his World War II memoir, wrote, quote, "War is brutish, inglorious, and a terrible waste. Combat leaves an indelible mark on those who are forced to endure it. The only redeeming factors are my comrades' incredible bravery and their devotion to each other." In combat, there are thousands of variables, as I learned in Iraq and Afghanistan, and as so many of you did in so many more places. Leaders can only control about 3 of them. You control how well you're trained, mostly how well you're equipped, and the last variable is how well you lead. After that, you're on your own. Our warfighters are entitled to be led by the best and most capable leaders. That is who we need you all to be. Even then, in combat, even if you do everything right, you may still lose people because the enemy always gets a vote. We have a sacred duty to ensure that our warriors are led by the most capable and qualified combat leaders. This is one thing you and I can control, and we owe it to the force to deliver it. For too long, we have simply not done that. The military has been forced by foolish and reckless politicians to focus on the wrong things. In many ways, this speech is about fixing decades of decay. Some of it obvious, some of it hidden. Or as the chairman has put it, we are clearing out the debris, removing the distractions, clearing the way for leaders to be leaders. You might say we're ending the war on warriors. I heard someone wrote a book about that. For too long, we've promoted too many uniformed leaders for the wrong reasons. Based on their race, based on gender quotas, based on historic so-called firsts. We've pretended that combat arms and non-combat arms are the same thing. We've weeded out so-called toxic leaders under the guise of double-blind psychology assessments, promoting risk-averse, go-along-to-get-along conformists instead. You name it, the department did it. Foolish and reckless political leaders set the wrong compass heading, and we lost our way. We became the woke department.
That is Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. His opening salvo in his address to various high-ranking generals and admirals yesterday in Quantico, Virginia. After listening to what you just listened to, what we all just listened to, does that sound like he's getting ready to lay down the law on physical fitness standards? No, it doesn't, actually. It really doesn't. If you didn't know what was coming, you wouldn't know what was... you really wouldn't have no idea what's coming next, except for the fact that he doesn't sound super duper happy with a lot of the people in that room. Much like, I believe, I think what's going on right now when it comes to vaccines and autism in general, when it comes to HHS and what they're trying to do over there. This is the camel's nose under the 10th. There's a great misconception towards the latter part, and it was becoming undone towards the latter part of the Obama administration, but a great misconception, especially towards the midway point of the Obama administration, that the United States military still was the last institution not to be captured by Marxism in one form or another. And maybe it preceded Barack Obama and his presidency, but I think it became abundantly obvious towards the end of his presidency that it very much had been captured. That was another one of the ways in which Barack Obama was the most consequential to this point, and I still hold out hope for President Trump that he'll be able to be even more consequential. But Barack Obama was the most consequential president, perhaps in American history post-Civil War. Maybe. Even the military was not immune from the fundamental transformation that Barack Obama was trying to accomplish during his tenure. So going back to this concept of the camel's nose under the tent. One morning we wake up and RFK Jr. and President Trump are saying, hey, let's not take acetaminophen anymore if you're a pregnant woman, or if you've got a toddler or an infant at home, lay off the acetaminophen, lay off the Tylenol. We're not totally sure, but there's some pretty positive links here between Tylenol and autism. What could it hurt? You heard President Trump say that. What could it hurt? There's no downside. Just lay off of it. I think that's setting the stage for another morning where we're going to wake up and hear them say, hey, we're not doing the MMR vaccine anymore. You can do the M or the R vaccine, but let's not take them together, okay? What's the downside? And off we go. You're just seeding that into the water table, that it's okay to question the way things have been done and the way things have been taken for granted for so long. I can see the same thing happening here. If you want to transform and fundamentally reform the military, get rid of all of the riffraff, get rid of all of the Marxism, whether it's at the academy, whether it's at the ranks that you listen to in silence there. They were in silence for basically that entire speech from Hegseth and Donald Trump. If you want to clear out those who are trying to get in the way of actual readiness to fight a war, what the military is supposed to be here for. If you want to clean out all of the harmful ideology that is getting in the way of that war readiness, you wake up one morning and there is your Secretary of War. Oh, by the way, we just changed the name. Refocusing the priority. There's your Secretary of War explaining why personnel is policy. Just dropping that in there. I'm sure that doesn't matter. That's not going to be the impetus for mass firings down the line. But no, personnel is policy. And hey, guys, you know what? Let's make sure we're hitting our PT goals. Okay? Not just the enlisted guys. All of you fatzos in this room. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Couching this, and it's necessary nonetheless. It really is, and I believe that. It's necessary to have a ready, willing, capable warfighting force. All the way down to janitor. It is absolutely necessary. But it's because it's absolutely necessary, and it's kind of one of the foundational building blocks of any military, that this is a good way to make the initial foray into completely reforming the United States military. So I think that could be what's happening right here. Hey, we're just asking for physical fitness tests, even you fatso generals right in this room. And if you don't meet them, well, guess what? I already told you personnel is policy, and you're not meeting my policy, so you're not part of my personnel. From my lips, hopefully, to God's ears.
You're listening to the AM Update, Week in Review. Follow on X and Instagram at RealAMUpdate.
What to make of what's going on with former FBI Director James Comey? John Solomon of Just the News joined Sean Hannity the other night to explain from his vantage point what we could be dealing with. I thought his commentary was pretty smart. Listen to this.
Well, listen, the key testimony against James Comey is going to come from his inner circle. One of the people that he trusted and ran the FBI alongside of will be the key witness saying, no, he authorized me to leak information contrary to what he testified to Congress. That's going to be a difficult case for James Comey to defend. I just want to step back. Yeah, well, it could be McCabe. It could be Daniel Ritchie. It could be James Baker. I keep an eye on James Baker. Remember the documents we had on your show a couple of weeks ago? All three of those are in position to testify they were authorized to leak. We'll see which one is person three when we in the indictment, but I would bet it's James Baker from what I know. The second thing that is just the pure magnitude of what happened today. 50 years ago this year, an attorney general was convicted for the first time in history of crimes. Tonight, for the first time in history, an FBI director is indicted on crimes, and both men face the same charges. False statements and obstruction of justice. It's an extraordinary moment, a grave moment, when a director of the FBI is accused of this level of criminality.
Your sources tonight are telling you what, John Solomon? What could be next?
I think other government officials are in danger of being indicted in the coming weeks, some in the FBI, some in other parts of the government. This is the beginning of a large accountability roundup in government. And I think what's really remarkable, most of my career I've spent uncovering FBI cover-ups. The FBI has a long history of misleading Congress. Comey falls into that. But the evidence against Comey tonight comes from the FBI and its new director, Kash Patel, who promised radical transparency. And he actually provides the key piece of evidence that leads to this indictment. If you're a member of Congress and you've been tired of being lied to by the FBI, tonight's the first time the FBI actually did something about it. They turned in their own man tonight. I think that's an extraordinary part of this story.
John Solomon at Just the News. His perspective on what we are actually dealing with the indictment of false statements from former FBI Director James Comey. I'm just here to say I don't care if this is completely 100% politically motivated. I don't. And I'm not the first person to say that as well. But I just want to go on the record by saying I don't care if it is absolutely politically motivated. And there's actually no there there. Now, I tend to think that there is a lot of there when it comes to James Comey and potential misdeeds. But here's why I don't care, even if there's not. The left has weaponized the justice system against the right, against President Trump, against various people in his orbit for years. Basically, the 4 years he was out of office, it was just hell. The process was the punishment for dozens of people within President Trump's orbit, and especially for President Trump and his family themselves. The only way that I would be disappointed with this is that if there weren't more of these indictments against the James Comeys of the world. If we're going to use the Justice Department, the justice system in this country, as a cudgel against political opponents, then turnabout's fair play. It has to be. That's the only way it can be. That's the only way there's a chance, not a lock, not a guarantee, but only way there's a chance at dissuading the left from doing this again to people who don't deserve it. Now, the difference might be this time. The difference might be this time that James Comey actually deserves this, and that nobody caught up in Trump's orbit actually did, really, at the end of the day. That could be the difference. It could be that we're actually carrying out the law correctly, our side is, and the left never really did. I'm sure that there was some tax evasion or something like that they tried to get one of Trump's people on, but in the grand scheme of things, it could just be that we're actually carrying out the law the way it should be prosecuted, and they never did. That could be the case. Whatever the case is, the process cannot be used as a punishment any longer. And I just hope and pray that the left, especially those at the top, are getting this message. I was heartbroken on multiple occasions on Sunday as they were pulling bodies out of the rubble at that LDS church in Michigan. The number of people who describe themselves as Reformed, as evangelical, as fill in the blank, giddy to remind everyone that Mormons are going to hell. As Mormons went to bed on Saturday night hearing the University of Colorado student section shouting, "F the Mormons," waking up on Sunday morning, learning that their president and prophet, at 101 years old, had passed away, And then a few hours later that one of their churches had gotten shot up and firebombed. I'm not sure that mourn with those who mourn, weep with those who weep, means telling those who are mourning and weeping that they're going to hell. I had to wait for a day because I wasn't sure if this was just my algorithm on social media or whether it was a larger phenomenon. But I've seen multiple talking heads, including somebody like Michael Knowles at the Daily Wire, pointing out that this is just uncouth. This is not how civilized people behave. And I don't get, and I don't want to get, anybody who might have a legitimate disagreement with Mormon theology. And I know I do as well. I don't get the impetus. I don't get the impulse to just come out of the gates swinging while they haven't even buried their dead and reminding them that your theology is insufficient. I don't understand that, and I don't want to. And I just want to add this as well. I've said this over and over and over again about Mormons, that they do a better job of acting, doing. They do a better job of doing the Christian work than most people who identify as evangelical, Catholic, Reformed, whatever label you want to give them. What happened on Sunday is an unqualified act of evil. Some of the things I've seen on social media is that the shooter was asking them whether or not they believe Joseph Smith or Jesus Christ. I can promise you if those rumors are true, nothing what he did, none of his impulses, none of his actions of that shooter, nothing in the Bible ever justifies that. And it doesn't really matter at this moment whether or not you think Joseph Smith was a prophet. It doesn't. And I've long maintained Mormons are not the enemy. If you're not a Mormon, but you are a Protestant of some stripe or a Catholic of some stripe, Mormons are not the enemy, and they never have been, especially when it comes to the culture war issues. Never. We may have legit disagreements, but they are not the enemy, and they never have been. Because to the devil, to Lucifer, there's no distinction amongst Mormon, evangelical, Reformed, or Catholic. There's no difference. And we saw that play out the other day. So, I'm sorry for every Mormon in my mentions coming at me as if I played some part of this because I don't have the same theology as you. I know you're hurting right now. And it's okay. I can take it. When it comes to what we're up against in this culture, we all need to stick together. And hopefully, when the spirit of the age someday is more vanquished than it is today, we can have legitimate disagreements and we can rhetorically slit each other's throats. But I'm just telling you, to the enemy, to the devil, there's no distinction amongst Mormons, Protestants, Catholics. There's just not.
You're listening to the AM Update, Week in Review. Follow on X and Instagram at Real AM Update.
And finally, our poll of the week, I asked you, is it hypothetically beneficial for Republicans if Democrats shut down the government? I gave you 3 options and the opportunity to comment. Absolutely, not at all, and we need to be careful. In third place, 5.3% say no, it would not at all be beneficial for Republicans if Democrats shut down the government. In second place, 26.8% say we need to be careful how we tread here. Republicans have to be careful in playing their hand here. And in first place, 63.8% say absolutely it is beneficial for Republicans if Democrats shut down the government. Let's go to what you had to say. Daniel says, are people's daily lives going to be affected by a shutdown? Congress makes such a big deal of these fights. I don't recall in my life a government shutdown where everyone was negatively affected. I don't think this would be a major election issue. I'm open to opposing views. I saw somebody who claimed to be an advisor for Bill Clinton back in the day when Newt Gingrich and the Republicans shut the government down back in the 90s, who told Bill Clinton this is going to absolutely be a loser for Republicans. And this same individual claiming to be an advisor for Bill Clinton back then said this is going to be a loser for Democrats. Now, maybe this is the cynical side of me, but maybe this is just because I haven't been allowed, or alive, both alive and allowed, to see an actual shutdown. like a long-term shutdown. So I just want to see with my own eyes what is impacted here. I just want to see for my own eyes. Can we live without government for 4 weeks? 8 weeks? Can we live without these programs? ATB says, given the propensity of Republicans to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, one can never say anything can be absolutely beneficial to them. I love the snark, and I can't argue with that. Jay Breezy says, over a year away from the midterms, I don't really think it's good or bad for either party on the macro level. That's probably a smart take. Rhino says, it's a fake shutdown. It's always fake. And like I just said, I have never seen a real shutdown before, so I'd like to see it. Mark says, I don't think it matters either way. It will all come down to the economy in the next election. If things aren't noticeably better for 90% of the population that are really feeling the inflation effects, Republicans will get hammered in the midterms. I almost said in the murder terms, because I agree with that. You know, we've had multiple data centers built here in recent years in central Iowa, where I live. A couple very close by to me. And I don't know if this is just, if it takes years for you to feel the effects, our energy bills this summer. And it was a hot summer. It was a very humid summer. And so that means the dehumidifier in the basement is on a lot more often, and the air conditioning is on a lot more often. And I don't know how much energy the sump pump takes, but that was running a lot this summer. Our energy bills were just, if it goes up the way it did from last summer to this summer, I'm going to have to get like another job or something. And I'm only half joking. That's one thing. Energy inflation, these data centers. If you're in an area that has data centers, Zero Hedge has been talking about this for months. Utility bills are about to go through the roof. I mean, the jobs reports and revisions from the last couple of months, not looking rosy. Things are going to have to get turned around really fast. Jim says, I don't think it's beneficial to the GOP, regardless of which party shuts it down. Their messaging sucks, and everyone knows that they'll capitulate to the Democrats' demands in the end anyway, while taking the blame. Too few people actually want to shut down, unfortunately. I'll disagree with you on one part. They have been pretty, at least at the White House, they've been very steadfast in their messaging that the Democrats want healthcare, free healthcare for illegal aliens. So, that part of their messaging. Now, whether or not they'll actually capitulate, maybe this time is different. Maybe they'll be brave this time, but I understand the overall skepticism. Mr. Mayhem says, also better for the country if we do recess appointments and Doge. No, that's recess appointments are from when Congress is in recess, not necessarily for a government shutdown. Maybe they are for a government shutdown. Light the Dark says, if Democrats force a government shutdown, it could actually benefit Republicans. They'd get the blame pinned on Democrats and prove how bloated government really is. When life goes on without half the agencies, it's easier to argue these jobs and programs we never needed in the first place.
This has been the AM Update Week in Review. The AM Update will be back on Monday and every weekday at 4 a.m. Eastern Time.